Okay, this is Roxana Bangura of the Roxana Bangura channel and the Bangura Chronicles, where I and my daughter Maris share with you our life here in Mexico and beyond. Today I have an extra special treat and honor to interview a gentleman by the name of Manuel Gallardo, and he is from the state of Guanajuato. That's kind of central Mexico. It's also known as the strawberry capital of the world. I just learned that recently. He used to live here in Mexico. He's from Mexico, and he moved to the United States with his family. I think he's in California. Anyway, please look forward to the interview, and let me let him in. Just waiting to see him on camera. Okay, welcome, 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 welcome. It says you're connecting to audio, but you can't hear me yet. Okay. I see you. Can you hear me? Perfecto. Gracias a Dios. Okay. Perdón, disculpa for the problems. This technological thing is an ongoing learning process. So, bienvenido. Thank you very much for coming on my channel. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Okay. I want to let you all know that Manuel or Manny, his family and friends call him Manny. He let me know I can call him that. He actually saw the interview with me and Rakia on culture, race, and life here in Mexico, and he enjoyed that interview, and he reached out to me. So thank you, for reaching out to me. I appreciate feedback from people who watch the videos. It's really important to get feedback, and he told me a lot of things that I didn't necessarily know. And I'll just let him introduce himself. Let me stop talking. The interview is about him. So Manny, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so, well, as you know, I'm Manny. I originally from the state of Guanajuato. I was born there, lived there till I was 8 years old. I migrated to the States probably half the way in my third grade year. That was back in 1999. So we migrated here. Still during that time in the early 2000s, we would travel back and forth. So I remember it was like 6 months in the States, 6 months in Mexico. So through that whole process and time, I saw how big Mexico grew and how the culture started changing. Because I remember when I was little back in Mexico, there was no burgers, there was no pizzas.
Really?
Yeah, like I remember
in the 2000s. That's like 20 years ago. You're saying?
Yeah, it wasn't a big thing. They were just about to start coming in, and I remember the first time I tried a pizza, it was in Ciudad Juarez, and that was the year that we were like finalizing our paperwork for us to come over.
Okay.
And I remember
Juarez is on the border. It's in Chihuahua State. Yeah, it's on the border.
Yeah.
Okay.
Everybody that's trying to legalize their paperwork usually go to Juarez.
Because of the proximity, right?
Yeah, and I think that's where they, I don't know, but that's where the U.S. has its branch that processes all the paperwork for Mexicans, I believe. I don't know, something like that.
Okay.
And yeah, so I grew up in Bakersfield, California. I went to college in Fresno, California, which is 2 hours away from where I grew up. I major in international business.
Okay. Why did you major in international business? What made you do that?
I love traveling. I love traveling. My dad at first, he was like, "Are you sure you want to do that?" I'm like, "Dad, I love traveling. You didn't realize all that traveling we did back and forth in Mexico made me like be hungry to know cultures, to know people, to know, new places." So, I mean, that's what kind of guided me towards that major. And so, yeah, since then.
So let me ask you, you 8 years old, you have a lot of your memory of your life in Mexico.
Yes.
Can you describe the town that you were from? And what was the town like when you were a child?
The community I'm from in the state of Guanajuato, it's a really small town. Like literally, it was a ranchito.
A ranchito, okay.
Yeah, so literally everybody in that little town was all relatives.
Okay. And Guanajuato is central. It's central Mexico. It's a beautiful state.
It's part of the central Mexico, and where I'm from, it's from the municipality of Yuriria. Which it borders with the state of Michoacan.
Okay.
So it was a super small town. I remember growing up, because by that time my dad would go back and forth in between the States and Mexico. So he would go like during the seasonal work, go to the U.S., work, save some money, and then come back.
So your
But
dad's a migrant. He was a migrant worker.
yes,
Feeding
exactly.
America. Feeding
Yeah,
America.
he came. Yeah, he came to America since he was a teenager.
Okay.
So anyway, so backtracking to that, so during that time, I mean, he I think we waited almost like 6, 8 years for us to get legalized, my mom and my sister and myself. So I remember in that time, my dad would go back and forth, and still it wasn't very developed. It's just a little ranchito. Like the main street that would lead to that rancho was still gravel.
Oh wow.
There was no phone lines. I remember
No
my dad,
phone lines
no
in
phone
the
lines.
90s?
Yes, it was still not very developed. And that's why when Raquel was saying TJ was just a dusty little town, a little city. And it's very true. Like travel after we migrated to the States and going every year back and forth, because my dad would drive all the way from California down to Guanajuato.
Oh, really?
So during that whole process of going back and forth, I've seen so many cities become so industrialized.
Okay.
It's crazy. But anyways, backtracking to my little town. So I remember there was this where people were able to call. It was kind of like I guess a little business, and they only had like four phone lines. So whenever my dad had a call, they had to call there, and then they would go let my mom know that my dad was gonna call at that time, and we would go. Like, I think we would go walking like for 20 minutes to get to that place because it was in the nearby town. Yeah,
I'm taking aback that you grew up this way and you're so much younger than me.
yeah, no. So that's why when I tell people, like people that didn't get to live through that, I'm like, oh, I saw Mexico become to what it is now. I mean, where we were, it was just, I mean, there was still a lot of poverty. I remember even we don't go far. My great grandma, she still lived on a house that was made out of rock. And
Wow.
just,
Till this
yeah,
day, you're
well, she
now.
doesn't live anywhere. It was my mom's grandma. So I remember I was probably like 4 years old, and we would go visit her. Yeah, she would still live, no electricity, nothing. I mean, and I feel like that has influenced the way I think about things nowadays, especially immigrants.
Mm-hmm.
You
And what
know,
do you
because,
think about immigrants? How has that influenced your thinking?
well, I mean, I'm only gonna have a sympathy for them. I mean, it's people sometimes make it seem like, they just choose to migrate or whatever. And it's like, you have to understand their background. People don't just one day wake up and decide, oh, well, I'm going to move to this country. So
I mean, I don't know about, as far as I know, with migrant workers, they're the ones who feed the United States. If there weren't
yeah,
any migrant workers like your father,
well,
all the
ex-
people that do these jobs that keep the United States running are not necessarily Americans in so
mhm,
far as people who work the agriculture with the food supply. There are people who are from Mexico and maybe other parts of Central and Southern America. If there was none of them, I don't know how America would eat. you know?
exactly. No, and we don't go far. It's right here in California. If you
Yeah.
go to the field, like the fields, the ones that pick up the crops, it's all the Mexicans.
Is it mostly just mainly Mexicans? Are there people from other
In
countries?
in California is Mexicans and Central Americans.
Okay.
But I'm pretty sure in other states you have probably some other people from other countries. But here in California, what make up the agricultural business, it's all for the majority are Mexicans and Central Americans, Salvadorians, Hondurans.
What
So
have you seen? What have you seen? Because you're talking about 1999. I'm going back to 2001. Were you about 10 years old in 2001?
yeah,
you were about 1 years old. Okay.
around 10. Yeah.
10 years old. I know that, 9/11, I'm from New York. So 9/11 was very impactful for the country, for the world, but, particularly for us in New York. And I remember reading about how people who were from, mainly Mexico and Spanish speaking Latin America, how if people got hurt working in restaurants, during that time, people went missing. People went
Yeah.
missing, and that there was no way to really trace them because of their status. They weren't documented.
Mhm.
Did that have any impact on? Did you know anyone? Do you have any family members that got impacted by 9/11?
Well, the thing, Roxana, with the 9/11, I mean, it wasn't an issue with the people I know because most of my family, it's legalized in this country.
Understood.
Yeah, so luckily they were, I mean, that I can pretty much everybody and relatives and stuff like that, they're spread out because I have some relatives in I have relatives in Texas, a lot of people in Texas, Alabama, New Jersey. I mean, everybody just spread everywhere. But when it came to like the undocumented community, I didn't see a big uh, impact after the 9/11, probably because, you know, we were all the way in the West Coast.
Okay.
But I remember in the early, I think it was like 2005, 2006, when they were having huge raids across the states. I remember my school, because the thing is another thing where I grew up here in the state in California.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be an Okie town.
A what town?
Okie, like it was all Okies from the Midwest.
What is an Okie? No sabi.
So pretty much, well, I think white people from Kansas that
Oh,
migrated
okay,
during the
Okie.
Dust
Okay,
Bowl.
that's a new term. Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, so it was a predominantly white people town, and the migration of Mexicans, boom, became like a little Mexican town.
Okay.
So, you know, a lot of it, I remember during the raids, a lot of us actually, I think that by that time we were in high school. A lot of us marched and we didn't even go to school because, I mean, there's a lot of, we had friends that didn't have papers.
So
Or,
immigration was coming into
yeah,
businesses.
they were sweeping through the field workers. I mean, factory workers. I mean, they were popping everywhere.
Was that
So,
under the Bush administration? What administration was that?
but yeah, it was under the Bush
Under the Bush
administration.
administration. Okay.
Yeah.
And so you were protesting that.
Yeah, the whole, I think it was 2 days, our whole school, wouldn't go to school, and we would march all the way to the nearest biggest town, which is Bakersfield, California.
Okay. And
Yeah.
the people that you knew that were undocumented, is it safe to assume that their parents were agricultural workers? Maybe they
Yeah.
were service
Yeah.
jobs, service industry.
Agriculture, packing houses, construction. I mean, they're everywhere, Roxana.
Okay.
Restaurants. Yeah, they're everywhere. I mean, in restaurants, they're sadly, I mean, they're part of it and they get paid under the table. And sometimes they
And
get, you know,
abused. And abused.
exactly.
I want to, because coming from where I lived in, coming from New York, and then I moved to the Maryland, DC area, which there's a large population of Latino people or Spanish speakers from Mexico as well as El Salvador. I would say even more El Salvador, but there are Mexicans as well. And my ex-husband, my daughter's father, he worked in a factory. They processed vegetables and fruits.
Mm-hmm.
And it would bother him, it would frustrate him because he couldn't speak Spanish. So it was the funniest thing to me. And I speak Spanglish, coming from the Bronx.
Mm-hmm.
So I would always tease him. So he's from West Africa. He bought a machine. The machine was supposed to translate for him. I don't think it really worked. But my point is, he knew, as an immigrant from Africa, dealing with other Spanish-speaking immigrants, that he needed to speak Spanish.
Exactly.
Like, he was not able to function with the industry that he was in without being able to communicate with his coworkers, because the majority of the people were Spanish speakers.
Yeah. Well, and it's the same thing over here. I mean, in agriculture, whoever is in charge of the crews, whatever, have to have some sort of like, well, the owners of like the farmland and everything, eventually they have become to where they communicate in Spanglish. Because I remember my dad communicating with his boss in Spanglish when I was little. And
where was his boss from? His boss was from the United States.
There were he had a few bosses because right down here a lot of Indian have land also. So
When
that was
Indian
from India, from the country
India.
India. Yeah,
The
so he had
where you are in California?
Yeah, a lot of the Indians right here own land.
Agricultural land?
Hmm.
Oh, you telling me something now?
Same
Really?
as same as Portuguese people. Yeah, I don't know if it was during with Portuguese people. I know the government gave them land.
Which government gave them land? United States government?
Hmm.
Portuguese people?
Yeah,
I'm trying to I'm trying to make sense of this. Why would the United States government give Portuguese people land?
I don't know, but it made it easy for them to acquire land here. And then Indian people, I'm not sure how the Indian people became ended up acquiring land,
Because the
but I
stereotype
think
with people from India is that, they have Silicon Valley. They're with all these tech companies.
yes, but
Okay.
these people were already rich back in India.
Okay.
But I think a lot of them are Sikh, and I know Sikh went through Sikhs back in India went through a kind of like not a Holocaust. What's another word when they were
They're persecuted against because they have the
because of
caste
their
system.
yes.
And
So
from what I've read, Sikhs were Hindu,
yes.
but they were not on the, because they were considered lower caste. So then
Hmm.
they from what I've read and seen, they started Sikhism, and a lot of them became Muslims or Christians. They
Yeah.
left the
So
religion because of persecution.
exactly. So a lot of them are in the Sikh community here.
Interesting.
Now I don't know if they also the government made it easy for them to obtain land here. I don't know, but a lot of them own a lot of land here in California.
Okay.
So my boss, his bosses were either Indian or white. Yeah.
Interesting.
So
That's what you remember. Is that still the case now? Is that still the
yeah,
case?
it's still the case now for the most part.
Is your father retired? What is your father doing?
Actually, no, he's still working. He's probably gonna be retiring maybe like in 2, 3 years already.
He's still working the fields?
Yeah, he's still working the
Really?
fields. Yeah,
Oh my goodness. Oh my
yeah.
goodness. I want us to talk about, Guanajuato, or what you said that, you've seen the changes with your pueblo, your pueblito, your ranchito. Where I want to talk about remittances, okay? The money that Mexicans or immigrants, whatever, people who send back to their home countries. When was the last time you visited your birthplace?
Last time, hey, it's been already 3 years. And we were supposed to go this year in May, but with all this, the COVID situation, the plans just fell off because we were gonna have a family reunion back home in Mexico, and we're also gonna baptize my sister's my nephew. Yeah,
Oh,
so we had all that planned out, but that didn't happen. But the last time I was there, it was 3 years ago, and actually, back in Guanajuato, it's been 4 years ago. Because 3 years ago, I was in the state of Nuevo León because we visited. I have some family up there in Monterrey. So that was the last time. But back in my rancho, I think it's been 4 years.
4 years. And
Yeah.
what did you see 4 years ago? What struck out to you?
Well, I mean, that whole area. The thing is, another thing with the state of Guanajuato. Guanajuato and the state of Jalisco and Michoacan are I think, the top three states that have the most of its people that have the highest, number of citizens in the states.
Why is that? Why
Yeah.
you would think
Well,
it would be Chihuahua or Durango by the
no,
border
mm-mm.
or Nuevo
But
León?
I think it traces back to the Bracero program
¿Qué es?
because during the Bracero program, when I think the majority of people were from that states, and after they ended the Bracero program, people stay with that mentality. Let's go get dollars because that's what
Explain to us, what is that program? What is
the
that?
Bracero program was. Kind of like a working program where they were hired temporarily workers. Majorly, I think it was in California and Arizona and Nevada. They would hire people from Mexico to come work the fields, packing houses and stuff like that. So they would bring them over, and they had like camps where they would stay temporarily, and they would provide food and everything.
And they
So
recruited from Jalisco, from
so
Guanajuato.
a lot of them, the vast majority that I kind of read a little bit about, it was from those three states. The majority of the people. Of course, there was a few from other ones,
Okay.
but I think that created that culture of like, oh, the American dream is to eventually go. So after they ended the Bracero program, many stayed here legally, but
Mhm.
others came back. So, there was this culture that, in America, everything was possible, whatever.
Mhm.
So I feel that mentality was implanted. And then when the amnesty came in, there a lot of people fixed their papers and they started bringing their kids, their families, and a lot of people from those three states left. And
I want to say something about immigration. People don't realize that immigration is a two-way street. And
yes.
there are a lot of people born in the United States, born in Canada. Okay,
Hmm.
Mexico houses the highest amount of Canadians and people born in the United States, Americans, than any other country in the world outside of the United States and Canada.
Exactly.
So there are a lot of Americans here who are not here documented. I wish people, I want to impress that on people. It's not just Mexicans going to the United States or
Hmm.
Canada. There are Canadians and Americans here legally and illegally,
Yeah,
here documented and not. And people need to realize that Mexico houses a lot of people north of the border.
exactly. No, and it's very
People see
true. And
opportunities here, people migrate.
yes, and especially nowadays. I mean, I've never seen the Haitian community be so big in TJ.
I keep on hearing that. I see things.
Like,
I want to go there and eat because I love Haitian food.
no, yes. What was it? I think it was like 4 or 5 years ago that I went to TJ and I started
That's
seeing so
Tijuana.
many,
TJ's
yeah,
Tijuana.
Tijuana. So I started seeing a lot of people, a lot of Haitians. I was like, oh wow, the community is really growing. But a lot of it is
Because
because,
Mexico, I believe Mexico had a relief program for Haiti when they had one of their
eh,
earthquakes.
yes.
Mexico does a lot of humanitarian work for other countries.
And and after Trump came into power, he knocked the whole thing. So a lot of them stay stranded in TJ, and now they're making their life there. So, but that's the other thing too with border towns. You see how culturally they're changing because you're also getting a population from Central America growing in those communities. So, especially TJ has become like a little hub for all these different groups.
Mexico is really strategic. I'll tell you something. Years ago, I knew someone from the Ivory Coast, right? That's West Africa.
Oh,
And
actually, just talking about that, me
uh-huh.
too. In the
You
state of
do?
Guanajuato, there we were at the Central Camionera,
Uh-huh.
and there was this. It was this
What
girl
is,
and her two
tell
brothers.
us what Central Caminera is. What is that?
It's the bus station.
Uh-huh.
So, because we were gonna go to San Miguel de Allende from Celaya.
Okay.
So we were there, and there was this group of well, there were black people. So, but my guess was, oh, they're probably Haitians.
Mm-hmm.
So, but no, they were speaking in English. So I talked to them, and they were from West Africa.
Hmm.
I was like, where are you? Like, how do you guys get here? And it was like, well, we went all the way to Brazil, and since then we're just make our way up. I was like, oh my gosh.
That's what I was going to say. I
Oh
learned about that in the 90s. I had no idea, but it makes sense.
yeah. I
Mexico is
was
very
like,
strategic. People, it's a gateway
hmm
to try to get to the north. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So I mean, it's just crazy once you start seeing that. And the thing is, Americans are so naive about this issue because they don't study it or they don't, and they haven't seen it. And once you see it, it makes you think. Because I remember, Roxana, there was one year, and I was still young. I was probably like 12. Uh, that was during the time when Juarez was really bad. But back in the days, we would have to travel through Juarez, to cross the border. But because it was so bad, people would start going around the city
Hmm.
to be more safe and get back on the freeway. So there was this year that we took a route through the outskirts of Juarez, and I couldn't you, there was, as we were getting around the city, there was this like empty, dusty fields, like in both sides. There was nothing. It was just desert, and there were so many immigrants in little huts.
In huts in Juarez?
Yeah, in cardboard, like,
In
and
Juarez, in
yeah,
Chihuahua.
in Chihuahua and
That's
Juarez,
kind of
and
what they're stuck there, is what you're saying.
there's exactly all the people that travel from down south in hopes to cross the border.
And these are people from all over the world, not just
Yeah,
Mexico or
yeah,
Central
hmm
America, right?
exactly. So
In huts.
I,
So people were living in these makeshift The housing.
Yeah, yeah, just cardboard little things for them to. I was like, it shocked me. It really shocked me because I was like, wow, it's.
When was this again? How long ago? You said you were 12?
It's were probably I was maybe around 12, 11, couldn't remember, but it
So
I
this
was
was like in the early 2000s.
our early 2000s, yeah. So,
I mean, I don't know because I've only crossed the border once by land, you know, and I know
uh-huh.
that's a whole different world. Yeah, we crossed through Laredo, or no, it wasn't Laredo. It could have been Colombia, but it was Nuevo León. That's how we crossed into Texas.
Oh, I
But
think it is Laredo.
yeah, yeah, it wasn't Laredo.
I
Or
think it, yeah, because it's Laredo and Nuevo Laredo on both sides.
okay, and you
Yeah.
know, I don't know anything. I know nothing about the border life. You know, coming from New York, I was very ignorant about the whole situation. You know a little bit, but it's a different thing when you're experiencing it.
Yeah.
You talk to people who are by country. You know, they work in United States, but they live in Mexico, and you know, it's a whole different world. And I tell people there are different types of Mexico is not just one. It's a big
Exactly.
country, but there are
Yes.
just so many different things going on in the country. For me here in Veracruz, cost of living in Tijuana is expensive. It's like, what? I'm not living over there. It's too expensive. Like I like where, you know, Veracruz is my city
Yeah,
right now, you know.
exactly.
What have you been seeing in light of, you know, your dad is still working you know, doing this agricultural work. How what have you seen in terms of the COVID situation with, you know, from your perspective? I'll share mine later, but how has it affected your dad and his coworkers, your family in the U.S. side, as well as here, as well as in Guanajuato? Like, how is it affecting you all?
Well, over here, I mean, for people in agriculture, it hasn't affected them. They're still working. They still haven't worked, and I think even in factories, they still haven't working.
So, did at
Uh,
any point that you know of, did people stop working at any point during
no,
this? Okay,
mm-mm.
so work
I
continued.
mean, they got to feed America.
They
They're
have to
considered
feed
essential.
America. They
Yeah, they
are
have to feed.
considered
Yeah,
essential.
they
Without
have to
them,
feed
there's no
America.
food.
Exactly. So, I mean, they did start doing more regulations where you only one person could go to the restroom, or like now they keep their distance. Make sure every time you go to the restroom, you wash your hands. If you're near around people, make sure you have a mask. So, I mean, there's been regulations, but still everybody's working. Now back home, uh, I don't think it has. I mean, it's hitting people, especially because, you know, like in pueblos now with grocery shopping or like to obtain some whatever stuff, it's kind of gotten a little harder. But since it's very agricultural based, there hasn't been like a huge impact
It hasn't been a huge impact.
because it's agriculture. So, you know, in agriculture, they're still going to keep doing whatever they're doing.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
that makes sense. I mentioned to you here where I am in Veracruz, my extended community, you know, like my friends' friends, you know, my
mhm,
friends' suegros and cuñados and all these, you know, people that, you know, I may not know directly, but I know someone who knows them.
right.
Maybe about the last month or so, uh, deaths. And it started with my coworker back in April. Her family friend passed away because of
Uh-huh.
COVID. And then now it's just been an increase. It seems like it's happening. It is happening. That seems like it is happening more frequently. I think one of the issues we're having here in Mexico, our borders, they're not quarantining people upon arrival. If you're
Mhm.
arriving by plane, I don't know what's going on with the borders, you know, land, but I know that for people coming in from the United States are coming into Mexico and they're not made to quarantine like they're made to quarantine in South
Yeah.
Korea or Hong Kong. There's
Right.
no facility for it, you know. So as a result of that, our numbers are not flattening. You know, the Secretary of Health had said that June was going to be bad, and now we're hearing that we're going to hit another peak in October. There was plans that schools were going to open August 10th. Normally, schools open for the most part the third week in August, the last week in August, rather.
Right.
Yeah, but now, you know, so the situation here is not good, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, now that you're touching on that, when I think it was back in like April or May. So there was a relative that she traveled with her husband to Mexico, to where we're from, and he started getting sick over there. Well, apparently he had corona. So everybody in the town were mad. It was like, you just came and brought all of this disease to the little town. So they were kind of, in a way, they were being discriminated. People didn't want to be around them. And I guess he had COVID. Well, things got really bad and he ended up passing away.
Oh my goodness.
So he was the first like relative, extended relative or person that my family knows that we found out he died out of COVID. And that was, I mean, by that time, there was not a lot
In
of cases.
April? When was that, in April?
It was like maybe May.
Okay.
It was like around May. And since then, even here, we started hearing more relatives, getting in contact with it. But Roxana, I have a feeling we were exposed way before that. I think my family got exposed to it back in November and December.
Me too.
Because some of us had a fever for like 2 weeks. When has it been a good regular cold where you last with like a whole week or two with a fever?
Same here.
Yeah. So I was like, no.
Same time frame.
Mm-hmm. We were exposed way before that.
But at that time, I don't think we knew. We didn't know.
Exactly. No, it was just, it's just a cold or a flu.
Mm-hmm. I think we went to Mexico City the Day of the Dead weekend. And I have my girlfriends there, and we were all in the street. We were in the street in the neighborhoods, as well as the Zocalo, El Centro.
Yeah.
In her little neighborhoods, like I'm literally street fairs, eating, rubbing against people. It was such a fun time. That was that November 1st through the 3rd. I came back sick as a dog, from like November. I didn't get better till like after Christmas. It was really bad.
No, it was bad, and I think everybody got exposed by then.
Yeah.
So now the problem we're having here is hitting the Latino community harder because, Latinos, especially Mexicans, they love going to the tia's house. They love going to the grandma's house. Everybody gets together.
Communal people. Yeah.
Yeah. So, they gather in big.
Distancing is just not what a lot of people of color are about. We're just
exactly.
This is just not our normal. This is,
and so
it's wicked. It's like evil to me that you can't be near your family or you can't be festive. It's so unnatural.
It's hard. It really is.
Very much so.
Yeah. So that's why it's hitting like minorities harder because of that reason.
Mm-hmm.
But back home, I mean, the only thing I've talked to I think my mom talked to one of my uncles. The only thing is hard for him because he does like he builds wood for construction, when they're making like the roof of houses and stuff like that. So for him, with factories being shut down, he hasn't been able to do any business.
Oh my word.
Yeah, so it's been a little tough for him. And
this is in California?
No, this is back in Guanajuato.
Ah, okay.
With family.
Economically, it's devastating people, in so many different ways.
Yeah, and especially because in Mexico, the majority is family owned. That's what makes it harder too, compared to over here. I mean, well, there's corporations, so the government is always going to have their back. So, but yeah, that's the situation that I've seen as of right now. And I feel like people here in California are over it already too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, they're like, at this point, they're over it. But
what are your numbers what large city are you near in California? You said
Fresno, California, which is in the
Fresno.
central.
Is that more northern California?
No, it's right in the central of California. It's in the Central Valley.
How are the numbers there? What is Corona doing?
I mean, I haven't checked what the numbers are, but I know we've been in the list of counties that the governor have put restrictions. They closed again bars and restaurants. They closed again beauty salons, barbers, and all that stuff.
Do you see, because like here in Mexico, prior to COVID, when people get sick, at least what I witnessed, when people are sick, people wear masks. It's a normal thing here. Mm-hmm. So that's before COVID. When people are sick, a lot of times you'll see people with masks on in public, not to transfer disease or infection. So that's a normal thing. And it's in my little pueblo here, my adopted pueblo, we're wearing masks. I remember I was walking, and when I'm walking, no one around me, I don't wear my mask because I'm, I want to breathe or whatever. When
Yeah,
there's no one near me, I have my mask with me, but I'm not wearing it.
but you're right.
Two people were like, two people were like,
Here,
cobre boca, cobre boca. I was like, So so we've complied with the
right.
municipalities. We've complied with the law. La regla is like, look, we have to wear the mask. We're wearing the mask. And people have been very compliant. But here I am outside of the United States. And what I'm seeing online is that there are people acting a whole fool not wearing a mask. So I'm just like, what's going on? I mean, obviously I'm not in the States, but from my perspective, I'm like, just wear the mask, So what are you seeing in your neighborhood, in your area?
Well, right here in my city, I feel people are already got used to it, whether they like it or not. But at the beginning, everybody was bitching. Everybody was like, "Oh, I'm not gonna," especially elderly, always complaining in the stores.
Necios.
Yes, and I'm like, "Oh my God, you guys are in the most risky category," So, but yeah, at the beginning, and I mean, I think still people are complaining because now they're enforced for you. In order for you to go into establishments like grocery stores, they require you to have a mask. If not, they won't let you in.
Yeah.
Yeah, but at first they were, like you said, they're very net.
Here. Do they take
Yeah.
the temperature there?
No.
Oh, they take temperatures here for
Yeah. Well.
stores. Not every store, but a lot of places necesita, ¿cómo se llama? Hand sanitizer and your temperature and
Yeah,
your feet have to be cleaned before you can enter the establishment.
we don't do that here.
They're doing that here.
Well, and I had a friend that went to cross the border to Rosarito, which is a little town, a beach town away from down from TJ, and he was telling me, like, everybody respects distancing and not being out over there compared over here. Because he went to the beach, he was like, the beach was pretty lonely. There was not a lot of people crowded together or nothing. So he's like, I feel like over there they were following the rules better than we are over here.
Yeah, I would definitely say so. I mean, I don't know. I'm not in the States, but from what I've seen in the States, I remember people telling me as late as a couple of weeks ago, oh, we have to wear masks now. I says, you have to wear masks now? We've been masking since like March, April. What are you saying?
There's even been protests for not wearing masks.
I've seen that.
I'm like, are you kidding me? I was like, oh my gosh, you guys are ridiculous.
My freedom, my rights.
Yeah, my rights. And I'm just...
I've seen that online in like Michigan. I know there were some things in the South. Funny enough, the people who were protesting, some of them have caught COVID.
Yeah. So it's just,
some of them have gotten sick. I don't know if people have died, but I know that COVID definitely spread. And I've seen things where, being in crowds, and we social distance, which is, it's sad. I literally just had the opportunity to see my friend. He's my boss, he's my friend, last week. I haven't seen him since February.
Oh, wow.
I haven't seen him like in person since February, and he lives very close to me because we were practicing social distancing. Unfortunately, his suegra succumbed to COVID.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah, his suegra. So this is what I'm saying. I'm like, oh my goodness, that always makes me snap back into reality that, there's something killing people, and it's COVID. I mean, people are dying for a variety of things. Okay, let me ask you, the people that you have heard about dying in your greater community, do you know if they have any other what is it, not symptoms, like other diseases? Because my thought is, obviously if you have a compromised immune system, or if you're not in the best of health, COVID can do some real damage to you and kill you easier than someone else. Have you seen that?
Well, I haven't really paid that much attention, but a lot of them, I mean, there's even been people have been perfectly healthy. I've seen reports of people that have been perfectly healthy and they ended up dying. Okay. But I mean, here in the Central Valley, since a high population, there's a lot of like people with diabetes in this area. So that's an issue. That's an issue. Yeah, exactly.
My friend's, suegra, mother-in-law suegra, she I want to say she had either high blood pressure or diabetes. One of
Uh-huh.
the two. And I, it's all anecdotal. I mean, we don't know what causes this thing. It sounds really nasty. Well, I'm just fascinated by the fact that you said, when you contacted me about the remittances and about people and how your ranchito,
Mhm.
his community has changed. And I didn't know about the situation with a lot of Indians having agriculture, having land in your part of Mexico. And then your father. So let me ask you: are there a lot of people who are Mexicans that are in Mexico that own these farms? That own this land
Well,
and
no. Well,
employ
were
other
they
Mexicans?
where they own these farms? The Indians is right here in California.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Are there Mexicans in that same
Well,
position?
that own farmland? No,
Yes,
it's very rare.
it's very rare.
If you find one that owns land, it's not that much compared to what other groups have.
Okay, tell me about the Portuguese groups, because I had no
Well, I
idea.
don't know. I don't know exactly the whole story about the Portuguese, but I know we have like little areas here that a lot of farmland belongs to them.
That's so interesting. And Mexicans work these lands as well,
Yeah.
and Spanish speakers work
Hmm.
these lands.
Hmm.
But you're
Yeah.
saying that it's a rare thing to have Mexicans actually own these lands and that they
Hmm.
work, that they farm.
Exactly. Or at
And
least I
what
haven't,
it's
or
a
at
very
least I haven't come across any Mexican that has a lot of land here.
you haven't come across it.
Mm-mm, not really.
So let's talk about you and your international business degree. Where have you traveled to outside of well, within Mexico, and if you've gone to other places?
Okay, so I've been to Costa Rica once back when I was younger, but in Mexico I've traveled to. Well, I mean, I some of them it's just passing by, but I mean I've seen it develop and everything. I've traveled to TJ area, which is Tijuana, Rosarito, what is it? Ensenada, Valle de Guadalupe, Cabo, and then I've been to the state of Chihuahua, Zacatecas, Nuevo León, Oaxaca, Guanajuato, Jalisco.
How was Oaxaca? The South. I love Southern Mexico. I love Central Mexico.
Oaxaca, Chiapas,
I'm
those
not a
states.
northern girl.
Yeah,
Yeah, beautiful,
those
beautiful.
are beautiful states.
Yeah.
But trust me, Mexico has a lot to watch that people don't even realize. There's a lot to see.
Yes.
Um, but I've been to Tamaulipas because I have family there. San Luis Potosí. I've been to quite a
I
few.
didn't like it. San Luis Potosí. We drove from Querétaro through there, and it just was very brown, and it just looked
Yeah,
flat.
you have to go to the La Huasteca Potosina. That's where that James Brown or some I forgot what was the there's like it's like a bunch of waterfalls, jungle. It was beautiful.
Okay, I need to
But
go there because where
you
we
pass
drove, I did
probably
not like
yeah,
it.
you drove probably where it was all like semi-desert.
Pretty much. And
Yeah,
I was like, oh,
yeah,
I says, oh, let's get out of here. I'm a central and southern girl. The central and
yeah.
southern part of the country is gorgeous.
Yes.
Gorgeous.
So I've been to quite a few places in Mexico, and then in Europe, I study in Spain. So while I was there, I traveled to France, the Netherlands, Switzerland, and Italy.
What is your favorite European country or city?
Oh my gosh, it's a tough one because I love Spain and Italy.
Okay, so Spain and Italy.
Yeah.
Spain, what do you love about Spain?
It's Spain. It was, well, in particular, it was with Barcelona area.
Okay.
It was the diversity and just the culture. I mean, it's very open-minded. I mean, I enjoy that city. And then the city, not to mention the city was beautiful.
Okay.
But
I've never
Italy,
been to Spain, but
yes,
I would go to eat because I love paella.
paella,
And I
it's
love
really good.
tapas. Yeah, I would
Tapas,
travel for food.
sangria.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was really fun. I enjoyed that time there. But Italy, I just love because it's so And I think a lot of it I love about these countries. Oh, Switzerland is a beautiful country too.
Yes, I've heard it's one of the prettiest countries
Beautiful.
in Europe.
But I
Yeah.
think what attracted me more to Spain and Italy is the fact that they're so close in culture and like the architecture to Mexico. Like
Okay.
there was places where I'm like, oh my gosh, this feels like if I were in a Mexican town.
You see
So,
a lot of their colonial influence in Spain.
but then like France was a little too expensive. I thought it was like I feel like France was overrated.
Okay.
So that was that. But yeah, those are the countries I've been to. The only
How was your time in Costa Rica? Were you very young when you went there?
Yeah, I think I was like 11 when I
Okay.
went there,
Okay.
and it was fun, beautiful country too.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's so many places I want to visit, and I worry now with how, traveling is going to be.
Yes.
You have to get like a medical, not that you didn't have to
Mhm.
before, there are things that you have to get to travel to certain places,
Exactly.
medical. But now COVID is another layer to it.
Well, it's like one of my friends said. I'm like, nowadays they don't want American cooties anywhere.
No, they really don't.
They
I mean,
don't.
there are a few places that are, where can Americans go? Is Mexico? Uh, where else?
I mean,
There are other
right now
countries I know, but it's like
in
limited,
Europe they're
right?
kind of restricting us, so it's kind of like,
Yeah.
but
Well,
yeah.
they're saying that blue passport is not as powerful as it once was. You know,
hmm
I
So,
don't know.
but
I'm just worried about how travel is going to be the next couple of months. Not even that travel is one thing. If you have to travel, for necessity, I understand. For
exactly.
leisure is not as important. The worry is the economic impact. People are still going to, there are people who are day laborers here. If you're working for Uber or DoorDash, you're a day laborer. You know what I mean? Amazon delivery, you're a day laborer. It's just a different setup as opposed to someone who's standing on the street selling fruit.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
And
so
surprisingly, what's booming over here in my area, it's taco trucks.
really
There's a taco truck in every corner now
interesting.
because everybody just wants to go out, order the food, pick it up, and head out and not go into an
Interesting.
establishment. So even like known restaurants here are moving into doing taco truck on the side.
That
So
makes sense because
that
you're able to
culture is
social
growing a lot
distance.
here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're able to social distance.
hmm
Here, there's a lot of businesses around delivery now. So we have a delivery guy, and he'll bring us whatever we want. Usually we just want pizza. But so there's been a lot of little businesses opening up around delivery, just delivery.
Yeah.
Whatever you want, I got you. And that was in place before, but we're seeing it heightened now. We
hmm
don't have food trucks in our area. You don't see food trucks, but obviously, the taco man, not the taco man, ¿cómo se llama?
Uh,
Tamales. Tamales man just went by
uh-huh.
my house. I heard him yelling. He comes just around. He's like a clock. He comes every time around this time like a clock. You could set your clock to him, and he just passed by selling tamales. So he never stopped. Like he never
Yeah.
stopped.
You know,
COVID is
that's
not stopping anybody if they're able to.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's the thing that I miss about Mexico the most is the street food.
It's in
God.
abundance. It's in
Yeah,
abundance.
street food is just like, oh man.
Yeah, it's in
But
abundance.
yeah, but no, but going back in Guanajuato, like I was saying, a lot of it that has happened throughout the years is also highways. Back in the day, there was no highways or freeways.
You're so young. And I'm like, what?
Yes, there was no freeways.
5 years old.
Like the road, like when you would travel from the states down there and back and forth, it was some little roads that it was crazy. And now with the whole freeways, it's much easier. And
So they
and I
put that.
remember
Well, why the need for the freeway? Because of the
infra
traveling. More people are traveling through there,
more
right?
people and the infrastructure started becoming bigger because there was two cities that I saw grow so much that you just saw how rich they became. You know what? I remember Chihuahua City was just a little dusty city. It didn't have much. And I remember year by year that we would travel, it was getting more and more developed. and we would always get lost in those cities because it was changing rapidly. Another city that we saw grow so much and change so much, it was Aguascalientes.
Mm.
It became a metropolis too.
And you're saying
So
within the last 20 years is what you're saying?
yeah, within the last 20 years, the whole infrastructure system became bigger, better, safer, I guess, too, because now my dad used to, like, instead of going through the libre, you go through where you pay, but at least there's more
Oh,
federales throughout the whole way.
mm-hmm.
Um, so that was that. I mean, like my little town, was it like the last time I was there, they even had Wi-Fi in their main plaza. I was like, what? You guys have Wi-Fi in the main plaza?
They've moved on up, huh?
Yeah. So you see these things, and also like in my area, you just see the wealth because you go through the little towns and it's two-story homes, nice decorated, very. But the sad part is that most of the residents live in the States.
So they're not enjoying the fruits of their labor.
No, it's kind of like they're building for their retirement.
Do you know, because I have stories here. There's a woman that I know, she was born in Mexico. She spent a good portion of her childhood in the States. And then, well, let me give you her story. Her parents had birthed her in Mexico. They went to the States and left her here with her grandmother.
Uh-huh.
For some time, they sent for her to go back to go live with them in the States. She lived with them, and then for high school, her and her brother came back here. So, and here's and I am going to do a series on it. You know, parents who send their kids away and raise, the grandparents, the aunties and stuff raise the children,
Yeah.
because there's a real disconnect between her parents. Now, the original goal was that her parents would work and then build a home here, and then everyone come from this, the parents would come back to the States and they'll live together. But the parents are not leaving the States. Like, they're not even, they say they're coming and no one is coming. So my question to you is, how many people do you know you're saying the houses are empty? Has anyone ever come back from Mexico to kind of retire here, or to kind of make a life here after
Well,
they've worked in the States?
like my uncles, the ones that are more older,
Mm-hmm.
they haven't like fully just left and settled there. But now that they're like, for example, some of them that are retired,
Mm-hmm.
they probably just stay over there like 6 months or 8 months, and then they come back.
Come back to the States.
Yeah, and back and forth. That's what
Why
they
do you
do.
think they're not just staying in Mexico?
Well, a lot big of it is also the family, is their children now that have their grandchildren. So that's one of the biggest
So they
things
have
now.
ties in both countries. That's why.
Yeah, they have
Ties in
ties
both
in both
countries.
countries. So, for example, for me, all my family is here. The only, like, back in my town, I have left is just a few family and my grandma. That's it. So, we don't go far. Like my whole little town, since it's a lot of relatives, the only people that live there is just grandparents.
Hmm.
So, and now let me add to that. So, because I didn't go to kindergarten, I started school in first grade over there.
Mm-hmm.
Roxana, the first year when I started first grade, it was two classes of first graders.
Oh, wow.
Two
Oh.
classes. And
Mm-hmm.
there were maybe like 20 something kids in every class. Well, within a few months, it condensed down to maybe only 15 in only one class.
People left.
All the kids migrated to the States. Like and not only that, because I remember I was little, I was maybe like 4 years old. Even in my town, I remember seeing so many people. We would go to my uncle's houses and there were so many people from all my different uncles. And little by little, the town started being empty. And I think we were the last ones to leave the little town.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, by then, a lot of my cousins, they were already established here, my uncles. But yeah, I was from the last one. So, and me and my sister were the last grandchildren that left my grandma and my grandpa. And I remember it was hard because we were their last grandchildren they grew up with. And even till this day, it was probably the hardest thing was leaving my grandparents behind because we lived right next to them, and they were like my second parents.
Absolutely.
So I remember there was one day it was like, finally we're gonna pack, we're gonna head out, and we're gonna live over there for more half a year or whatever. So at that time I was like, shoot, well, I'm excited because I used to like travel, whatever, but I didn't know what was about to come or nothing. I remember we hop on a bus, we drove through all different terrains, dusty little towns, crossed the border, and there we go, we're in America. Yeah, so
Do
we
you
the,
think,
those
do you think
communities.
those communities have changed? Do you think your generation will want to make a life in Mexico, or do the thing that your uncles are doing, the by
uh,
country, live in both countries?
They, if anything, I might see retiring, because I would consider retiring over there, to be honest.
Would you build
Just,
a home there? Would you build property
well, I
or buy
probably
property?
would, and then I mean, my parents have their house, and it's a big house.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, who knows what has, but I know, like for example, my generation, if their parents had land over there, I mean, they're probably going to take advantage and still work it back and forth.
Okay.
So, because I know some of my uncles, they they also have land where they harvest different crops throughout the year. So what they do is they have someone work the land over there and everything, and then they go and harvest everything and get the money.
Ah, okay. So
A
they're
lot,
okay.
yeah, a lot of tons of people do that. So, and that was another reason I feel like a lot of migration from the States happened because after NAFTA passed,
Hmm.
it had a huge impact on like little individual farm owners because they couldn't compete with big corporations in the States.
Hmm.
So a lot of them, that's why they eventually migrated to the States. So with the money they were saving, they started buying bigger machinery and stuff to improve agriculture in Mexico.
Hmm.
So a lot of the people that own, like in that area that own agriculture, a lot of their people live in the States.
A lot of the people live in the States.
Mhm.
NAFTA, people don't realize the effects of NAFTA and how it damaged,
Mhm.
businesses and the small farmers, the system.
Exactly.
Yeah, the
So
effects of NAFTA are far and wide.
yeah,
Even in Pueblo State here, the factories, the effects are far and wide.
yeah. So that was that, and then so most of, and it was crazy because, like I said, the town I grew up here in California, it was pretty much like a lot of people from where more community in Guanajuato. So it was like, it's funny because a lot of people would say it's like if they grabbed a piece of land from Guanajuato and just placed it here in California.
Oh,
So
really?
and yeah, in December, because December is all the fiestas patrias, all the fairs and all that. So that was a time that we would go down there. So I remember December will come around and we'll be like, oh, are you gonna go to Mexico? Are you gonna see you over there? We're gonna see you over there, whatever. So I remember when we would travel during December, we would go from California to El Paso. We wouldn't see a lot of people traveling, but once you cross to the other side, you would see plates from Alabama, Utah, Arizona, Nevada, Michigan. I mean, the whole way down to Guanajuato, you would see people from all different states in the States. And then once we were there in the community, when we would go to like the fairs or just around in the towns, you see places from everywhere: Texas, California, Michigan, Pennsylvania.
So
So
it
you
lets you know Mexicans are all over the United States.
Yes, so you see all this, and it was fun. I mean, December down there was fun. You would hear a lot of English music being bumped around in the cars from all different plates. I mean, that community during December when everybody, I remember like the locals would even say, I'm like, oh, yeah, todos los norteños are in town. Like all the people from the States are in town now. So it would become crowded. There was a lot of people. The fairs were fun. You would meet people from other states in the US. So it changed the dynamic, the culture of that area.
Do you think it changed the dynamic for the good or
No, I
for
think for the good. I mean, it has improved to where it was because rural communities were very poor, back in the day. So you just see the wealth that that has brought to those communities.
And it's the community that built up the community. The people from those
Mhm.
towns helped to develop their community
Exactly.
because it wasn't happening from the governments, right? It
Exactly. Yeah,
wasn't happening
because
from the government. So the
well,
people built up the
yeah. Exactly. So you just see the wealth that has brought this
Is there
to.
a lot of tourism? And when I'm saying tourism, tourism from Americans, not necessarily Americans of Mexican descent, but is your area, well, you have San Miguel Allende, right? I
Yeah,
get
San Miguel de Allende.
Okay, and that's like a big place where a lot of
Mhm.
Americans, I mean, it's just like a
Yeah.
America or
No,
not.
in my area, Americans not much,
Okay,
because the Americans they only stick to San Miguel de Allende or Guanajuato City.
that's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
They fly to the airport there and they go straight to those two towns, but majorly is San Miguel de Allende. And that's another thing too that you guys talked about, I think in one of the other videos, is how the problem with San Miguel de Allende, don't get me wrong, beautiful town. I mean, you can just see the wealth. But it literally feels like outside of Mexico. But it has made it very difficult for a regular Mexican citizen to live in that town. That's been the problem. So
It's a big
everybody,
colonization, yeah?
that's the only thing. But don't get, but yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful town, hands up for sure. But in my area, we haven't seen much. The only thing I've started noticing is immigrants from India and Asia.
In your town?
Yeah, because there's this town near us that's called Moroleon, and it's known for their textiles. Like they sell a lot of clothing, tons of clothing. And the last time I was down there, there was quite a few stores with owned by Indians.
Hmm.
Yeah, and they had like Indian clothing. I was like, what? That
Mm.
was new. And we're starting also pop. We're starting to have like Chinese restaurants. And I
Mhm.
was like, wait, is this run by Mexicans or is this actual Chinese? And no, they were
No, we
actually
have
Asian.
two. We have two here. Chinese
Yeah,
one.
yeah,
Chinese.
and they were actually Asian people. And it's funny because some of my friends that we went and they were like, oh, they might know English, and I'm like,
They didn't. The
I
ones
go,
I met
yeah,
did
well,
not.
they hit reality.
Chinese and their language. Yeah.
They tried speaking to them in English. I'm like, nope, they did not know English.
No, but Chinese people travel everywhere. People have to realize
Yeah,
not everyone has a connection to an English-speaking country. Chinese people are
exactly.
all over the world.
Yes.
In Merida,
Uh-huh.
there are Korean schools in Merida.
Oh, you
Okay, and
see,
you
I
can
did not know that.
they are teaching people Korean in Merida. There are trips from Merida to South Korea. So,
Wow.
and we know that, Mexico City has everyone. It's an international city.
Hmm.
So Mexico City has a little bit of everyone because I know people in Mexico City who are Nigerian. There's a large population of Nigerian, Nigerians are everywhere too. So
Yeah.
I know people in Mexico City who are Nigerian, so, and from other West African countries. People move, people move.
Yeah, people move.
And Mexico is and the thing is, Mexico is such an open, friendly country. People are very
Hmm.
friendly and open and warm. So if you are an immigrant, migrant, a foreigner, Mexico will kind of welcome you. People are very friendly and
Yeah,
kind. It
exactly.
took me
So,
aback when I saw the Korean lessons and trips to Korea. I says, well, you know,
yeah, and one time we took one of our black friends over there, and she's like, man, everybody here just admire me. Because you see the difference. It's like right here, I feel like they admire me for my color rather
and where
than
you
look at.
live,
Yeah, rather than they look at me. They were always saying, "Oh, like qué negrita tan hermosa." So you see, like kind of like she was like, I was shocked. Like, you see the difference. Whether right here, my color doesn't get as much like looked down, like in the States.
yeah,
And she loved
I
it.
can relate to her. That
Yeah,
has
she
been our
loved it.
experience here. Yeah,
It's
I
like
mean,
more.
colorism and racism and all of these isms exist everywhere, and
Oh
Mexico,
yeah,
and to include
yeah.
Mexico. But being Black in these spaces, I always tell people the first thing I say is I feel safe,
Mm-hmm.
I feel comfortable. People have been very kind to me and
Yeah.
my daughter, and literally, it happened the other day. We're walking, minding our business, and someone wants to take a picture. I'm
Yeah.
like, no, depending on my mood. My daughter was like, "Oh, mommy, you're being rude." I was like, "Yeah." I said, "Let him go watch TV. He can see black people on TV." But
Yeah.
it happens. It still happens. 3 years here. I went to a biking event.
Uh-huh.
Biking. And I was with my guy friend, and I should just charge those people them pesos. I couldn't tell you I took so many pictures that day. I should have started charging them. I was like, you know what? If we do this again, I'm gonna start charging you.
Yeah.
I know one time I teased someone, he was willing to pay. People want to take pictures with us, and I'm like, come
Yeah.
on, So I can attest to that.
Yeah. It's
My
much
color
different.
is
But
there's the exotic factor and all that sort of thing. People want to
mm,
fetishize you. So I'm very mindful of that. But definitely, yeah.
yeah, so you see this, but when it comes to like the actual Afro-Mexican community, I mean, that's
They're
oh,
very
and that's
poor and disenfranchised.
yes, that's where it, and I've kind of like learned more about it because one of my aunts married one my uncle, and my uncle, you could right away look at him and you're like, yeah, he's of African descent.
He's
But
from
we
what
were
state in Mexico?
in Guanajuato.
Really? He's from
Yeah.
Guanajuato? And he's
Hmm.
black.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
you can right away look at him and we're like, he has African features, but it was never talked about, and that's the problem. It's like, no, because these people have history in this country too, but we never put it out, and they're in the most marginalized communities. So, and I think that's how I came across your channel.
Oh,
I
really?
was, I was, I
That's
think
one of my
searching about,
tags, Afro
I
Mexico.
was, I think I was searching about Afro Mexicans, and you popped in, and I was like, "Who's this? Let me see." And that's how I started following your channel.
When I don't know, people don't know their history, people are not aware, Spain was all deep in these
Mm,
African countries. So, there are African people all over the North American continent, from Canada to Argentina.
mhm.
And with what I find with Spanish speaking countries, particularly, let's talk about Mexico. There's now it's I shouldn't say now, the last couple of years, there's been a resurgence in Black pride, African pride in Mexico, but it's nothing like what you see in a Colombia or a
No.
Cuba, which is, they have these vibrant Afro Latino Afro communities.
Mhm.
And that's what's kind of missing from Mexico for me as an
Yes.
African person, because I know I would have a ball in Cuba. I'd lose my mind in Colombia, but there's been so much erasure with the African branch. For ejemplo, my cousin,
Uh-huh.
her husband is, his last name is, there, he's West African, Bamba,
Uh-huh. Oh, wow.
like La Bamba. And I
Yeah.
try to tell these people, I was like, come on now, La Mandinga, that's African. You don't know, I'm here to tell you, But you have this thing like Mejor la Raza, systemically, you have a Black grandmother in the closet, and you hide her away, because I've met so many people in Veracruz that are quick to tell me, mi abuela, mi bisabuela, they're Black. And I'm like, well, what happened? These people were bred out because of
Yeah,
the
well,
name.
it's because you had that mentality, in Mexico that they always had, like, oh, like they would always say, you gotta better the color.
That's not just Mexico. Oh,
Yeah.
that's
So,
everywhere where there's been colonization, but Mexico
yeah.
is a part of it. And they're quick to tell me. It's almost as though they want to connect. Oh, my grandmother is Black. My great grandparents were Black. And I'm like, well, what happened? You know?
Yeah. It's really true. Well, we don't go far too, Roxana. My grandpa, he was of Spanish descent, you
Mhm.
know, light complected, green eyes, very pale skin. But they had a lot of problems because he married my grandma, and my grandma was Indian and she was poor. So when she got with my grandma, in a way, his parents kind of like disowned him. They were treating him different. There was for a while where they even left to a bigger city just because, I mean, they didn't care for them. And it was all because my grandma was an Indian and she was poor.
She's indigenous, yeah. And
Yeah.
this story goes on and on and on and on. You know,
Mm,
so many people have these mixed marriages, mixed relationships, and you're going to get heat from one side or the other. It's so
exactly.
unfortunate, but these people are tribalistic. People are like clannish,
Yeah.
racism, colorism.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you know, your grandfather fell for your grandmother. Why
Mm-hmm.
can't this be happening?
Exactly.
And how, but the thing that's funny is you're coming from Spain, coming into a place where there are people, and why wouldn't you think that these people are not going to mix? Like, where was
Yeah.
it not, you know, whether it's mixed consensually or not is another issue,
Mm-hmm.
because, you know, there's a lot of rape, and people, you know,
Exactly.
people have to realize that. But then it's also a thing where there are systems in place to try to breed out the indigenous population.
Exactly. It's a systematic issue.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
system.
and so and that's one of the things. It's like something my dad would always tell me too when because my mom did not go to school. This is how, you know, that's why when the in those communities where we're from, that you can see a huge disadvantage. My mom didn't go to school. She was home taught by his dad. And my dad was the only one that went actually to the equivalent of high school. The rest of his brothers only went to maybe second grade, third grade, fourth grade the most,
Why is that?
because they had to work at a young age. They had to provide for the family. They were poor. So a going to school was a privilege for many families. But since my dad did get a taste of, you know, education bigger than what than his siblings did, that's why he would always tell my sister, is like, you know, knowledge is power.
Absolutely.
Knowledge is power because, you know, when people are not educated, people who are in power will do whatever they want with you guys.
Absolutely.
And till this day, that's had what was always, that's probably what was more implanted into us. And that's like when we came here, it's like we cannot repeat the cycle. My dad already did the struggle to come here and provide as much as he can, and for us to end up in the same level that he's in, I was like, no. So we have to go to college, you know, get a career, and, you know, do better. But with other communities, I mean, with other people who had not a lot of education, it's a bigger challenge because they do not know the value of education, especially being in the States. You
Really?
know, yeah. Well, we don't, like in my community that I grew up here. I mean, you could they wouldn't push their kids as much.
Really? They wouldn't push their
Yeah,
kids as much to get an education?
yeah. A lot of like the elderly, they had a mentality on like, oh, as long as he learns English, once he learns English, he can get a better job. Like I don't know, at a I don't know something. But for others, it's not like. Don't get me wrong, it's changing, but it goes ties back to the level of education they had back home. You know, they do not know the value what it is to have an education. So since a lot of them didn't even go to school or whatever, so they don't know what the opportunities that come along with that. But that's another thing that makes it hard for those kids that are here because they live in they for it's or at least from my experience too, it's kind of like you live in two worlds. You know, home is one world and then outside is another world. And you know, if you don't have nobody to guide you, oh, apply to college, do this, you have to do this in high school in order for you to graduate, you know? So a lot of kids didn't have that. Now they do because of my generation is going back and doing changes, you
Okay.
know? And I think, what is it, this year? I think they just put it on the news not long ago. This year was the first year that Latinos made up the most enrollment in universities
In the
in
United States?
California. In California.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So
So
you're definitely seeing a change in terms of
mhm,
the generational change.
the generational change of
Okay.
mentality, you know, now you have to go to college.
Because we can assume that those parents of those they're in like my age in their 40s or whatever. So
Yes.
it's
Hmm.
changed. Okay.
It's
Well, that's
changed.
always a good thing. Like your father said, knowledge is power, and when you are
Hmm.
ignorant, you know, you're going to be really controlled
Yeah.
by the powers that
By
be.
the,
You're absolutely right.
exactly.
He's
So
absolutely right. And he had he had the privilege of being able to be more educated than his siblings.
mhm.
And as a result of that, look at his children and then his
Yeah, and that's why, with all the protests we've been having in the States, he's like, I'm glad they're doing it because we want change. That's the only way you're gonna get change. That's the only way. If we want change, that's the only way we're gonna get change.
yeah, I try to tell people revolution is, revolution and change is not nice and quiet.
No, it's
There's
not.
one woman, she was a follower. She lives in Tijuana. She lives in
Uh-huh.
Tijuana. She's Mexican, Mexican American, married to a Mexican. And she lives in
Mm-hmm.
Tijuana, and she had put that, Martin, I hate when they use Dr. Martin Luther King. Oh, well, Dr. Martin Luther King protested peacefully. First of all, the government killed Dr. Martin Luther King.
Exactly.
And he realized that he had made mistakes with wanting segregation because people who are oppressed, no, people who are in a position of power want to maintain the status quo.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you give up your power? Why?
Exactly.
Things are working out for you. Why
Mm-hmm.
would you give it up? Give it up. And then for those who are in who are subjugated, obviously, oh please, can you change? Yeah, that's just not going to happen. Revolution
Yeah.
doesn't happen that way. Look at the Mexican Revolution. Look what happened in Cuba. Look what happened
Or
in West
yeah.
Africa. These things are not nice and neat. So people have to realize, and you know what, with these situations in the United States, because it's not new. People killing brown and black people, police killing brown and black
Mm-hmm.
people. That is another reason for brown and black people who are in the United States. They're coming to Mexico. A lot of black people that I interact with, they're like, look, I'm over it. Between COVID, and it's not new, between
Oh
COVID
no.
and then this situation with the police,
Mm-hmm.
I'm over it. And that's one of the many reasons why they migrate or they immigrate
Yes.
or move to Mexico. And in Mexico, being physically close to the United States um, contributes to that. And I understand that. I
Yeah.
get that, There's an
It's
article in
fair.
the New York Post. The United States is one of according to the article, I don't know what the source, but according to the article, it said the
Mm-hmm.
United States is one of the worst places to raise a family.
Oh
So
yeah, I just saw that too the other
you
day.
saw that, right?
Yeah, I did see that.
So,
But
you know,
Roxana, the thing is, when you live in different countries, Americans live in a bubble.
cierto, very
Live
true.
in a bubble, and it just amazes me. It's like, no, like this world is more than your little community. Like it's just, it amazes me, and especially sometimes it amazes me more when it comes to like Mexican Americans, the ones that are already dip in like 3-4 generations in, because along with wealth, the more the higher the income you go, the more likely you're going to get more conservative. And same thing with generations. And sometimes I see like all of these Mexican Americans that are already like 3-4 generations in, their mentality is just like amazes me. I'm like, how do you think your people came eventually? There was the same struggle. Don't forget what you came from.
No, I think this is a disconnect between Black people and Spanish speakers. And I try to tell people, because in a lot of times people think, well, they're of color, nah. Latinos a lot of times align themselves with the Republican Party and that agenda, and people don't
Mhm.
realize that, or
It's
Spanish speakers,
exactly,
people
especially
better recognize that. Yeah, they don't align
mhm,
themselves with,
especially the ones that, like I said, are deep in like 2-3 generations
yeah,
in.
yeah,
They tend
don't
to go more
identify
conservative.
with the same issues.
So, and they always have that mentality. Well, if my family did it, why can theirs be, or stuff like that? And I'm like, no, because not everybody's the same. Everybody has their own story, and you have to be open-minded to the fact that, not everybody came to this country as proper as they could.
Yeah.
So, because I've come across Mexican Americans who oppose immigration, uh, who oppose illegal people, send them back to their country, who are Republican, and I'm just like, oh, you guys think, and then sometimes when you ask them why they're Republican, like what defines them as Republican is just a little few things, a few categories. And I'm like, no, for me, I just like, I do not fit in that, in no way. I'm so liberal. I was like, one, because I care about the environment. I care about, you know, systematic oppression in this country. It happens, you know, it's an issue. There's so many things I care, the economy, you know, stuff like that. I was like, no, I just do not fit in that category. So sometimes we get into it with, like, you know, some of the Mexican Americans are deep in generations already, and they don't know nothing. Some of them are even scared to travel to Mexico.
Really?
Yes.
Oh my word.
And I'm just like,
And you're saying 3 and 4 generations in, so
mm-hmm,
their great grandparents were Mexican
mm-hmm,
direct.
exactly.
You can say I'm first or second generation American because I don't know, they say the first generation is the one that actually leaves their home country and migrates to another country.
Exactly.
And then I'm born here, so I could be second generation. I always kind of call myself first generation because I'm first generation American.
Mm-hmm.
And my daughter is kind of half. Her dad was directly from Africa, and then there's me.
And yeah.
But so there's you have the migration issue, the immigration issue. And I'm always, as a child of an immigrant, I always support immigrant issues. And I am an immigrant to Mexico, so obviously I
Mm-hmm.
have to support immigrant issues because I left the country of my birth and I'm making a life in another country with my child. So I have to contribute to this country that has taken me in. The people that I find who are conservative or who align themselves with a more conservative agenda, like you said, a lot of times they're in positions of wealth,
Mm-hmm.
and it just doesn't concern them. These things don't concern them. But I think at the same time, I think they've eaten in or they've bought into the white supremacist agenda. Because a
Yeah.
lot of the times when you have a Latino or Hispanic last name, that categorizes you as someone who just, the WASP, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant society, will always have the, white supremacy will always bring you down a little bit when you have this.
Mm-hmm. And the thing is too, if you're a light complected, you know, Latino, you tend to blend in better. And
Oh,
eventually
absolutely.
you assimilate. And that was a problem, because the problem is, and I think every immigrant goes through that, or at least to what I experienced, is, you know, kind of, you growing up, you want to assimilate.
Mhm.
But then once you get older, you're like, screw that. Like, you know, I'm proud of who I am. I'm proud of where I came from. I'm proud of who I am, you know?
It's
So
indoctrination. It's hard to get rid of indoctrination.
yeah.
It's
And,
telling you that
and,
you're ugly because you're darker from the birth
mhm,
and
and
calling you
exactly.
so and these names, that just becomes a part of who
Mhm.
you are. And you
But
protect.
I have seen that light complected Latinos do tend to blend in eventually,
Oh,
and they
I believe
consider
it.
themselves white.
Oh, I believe it. Oh, absolutely.
That that's why, to me, I hate the term white. I hate it, because you're not white. You're European. But because they created this umbrella of whiteness, that's how they were able to blend in Italians, blend in Irish, erase their cultures.
You're
And
saying
I
it
do not.
all. You're saying it all, brother.
Yeah, I hate the term white. Just say you're European, because that's how they erase all these cultures
You're
of all
right.
these groups that started coming to this country.
You're right. I mean, even North Africans, it's different in Canada where the racial,
Yeah.
your color is recognized. I didn't
Hmm.
realize on the census, that if
Hmm.
you're North African or Middle Eastern, that you could categorize yourself as white
Yeah.
on the
Well,
United States Census.
in the United States one, that was my issue.
Yeah.
I was like, no, I am not white. So I ended up putting biracial, because through my mom's side, I have Lebanese blood.
There you have it. You do
And through
look
my,
like you are Middle Eastern. I
yeah,
see it.
and through my dad's side, I'm half Spanish, half Indian, you know, real, you know. So no, like, I'm not gonna put myself as a white person,
You're
because it
gonna mix the
erases
race.
it's gonna erase my Indian blood and my Middle Eastern blood.
You're
You
right.
know, it's not. And if
And
that's the
that's
case,
another thing. A lot of people are mixed race.
exactly.
Whatever race is, this social construct, because there's one
Hmm.
race, there's a human race, but for our point here, you're a mixed race person. I'll tell you something that I found very interesting living here, meeting people, online dating here. Let me tell you, it was online dating here that's a whole nother show. But what I noticed with a lot of the men, they identify themselves as Caucasian, number one. Number two, you would have a few that would identify themselves as Hispanic. And what I'm saying, I virtually, virtually,
Yeah.
I came across a lot of men virtually on the dating apps. Okay. So Caucasian was number one. And these men were of, all sorts of colors, but
Moreno, yeah, they're morenos.
these are Mexican men identified as Caucasian. Some would put Hispanic, which just really means you're from the Europe or whatever. And then there was really only one that put mixed race.
Yeah.
And I'm talking hundreds of men on these apps. You just come across, you're swiping, and a lot, they mostly identified with being Caucasian. And I was like, really? I'm like, okay, because in the States there's a different perception of who is white and all this sort of thing.
Yeah, so it
But
changes. But in Mexico,
yeah, men who are
yeah,
all shades of color, but they put themselves down as Caucasian. So that is how they saw themselves.
yeah, no, you see that issue.
Middle Eastern, Lebanese, your abuela is indigenous. And then it's like saying, well, I'm white. Well, what about your grandmother? What about your mother?
Exactly.
What
So
happens to them? Yeah.
yeah, so I mean, it's just, I don't know, it's just crazy. And it's funny because I have a niece that lives in Poland,
Mm-hmm.
and I think she's part of this group where a few Mexicans that live over there.
Mm-hmm.
And for her school, she did a report on Afro-Mexicans,
Mm-hmm.
of the Afro-Mexican population. And one of her friends was all like, oh, those don't really exist in our country. And I'm like, girl, I just represented about them. And so she was very kind of like, what's the word? Like kind of in denial. So she made my niece mad, and she was like, "Are you kidding me? What do you think you are?" And I was like, "Have you not seen yourself in the mirror? Like, you're morena, you're a dark-skinned Mexican. You most likely are of indigenous descent." Because she was saying, "Oh, like, oh no, the majority of Mexicans are you're a Spanish descent."
Oh, she's
I'm like,
great.
"No, girl, where have you been? If not, yeah, exactly, where have?" So my niece was like, no,
Come on
where
now.
have you been?"
Don't be that ignorant, but there are people like that. Come on.
No, exactly. And I don't know, it's just, sometimes it just takes me off. I'm like, you guys, I don't know what world you guys live in. But going back to over here, like I said, Americans just live in their little bubble.
Mm-hmm.
And it amazes me.
Mm-hmm.
It amazes me the level, like, if they get put up out of their comfort zone, it's a
Yeah,
whole
there's
different
definitely,
story.
I think I think this isolationist, oh, I can't even speak. This mentality of being isolated, I think
Hmm.
it's changing, or maybe because of the circles I run in,
Yeah,
people
I think.
that I interact
Mhm.
with are people who are, traveled and educated and expansive, and so those are the circles that I run in. But I think more people are realizing that uh, this American, if it was up to Trump, he's left all these different international organizations that you just can't have. You have to have diplomacy, and you have to be
Mhm.
able to work with other countries. And I think COVID is really proven that if you're going to be an isolationist, I can speak today. If you want to be this big bully, it's not going to work to your favor.
Mhm.
Didn't he do
No.
something where he kept some things from Canada? Someone was sending
Yeah, he's doing all kinds of
personal
restrictions
protection
around.
equipment. Yeah. And
Mhm.
he stole, you can't do that. Like, that's just not
Mhm.
done. And people are going to continue to hate you for it. People are always going to migrate to the United States because the
Well,
United States is bigger than Trump. But you just can't operate that way and say that you're a superpower, a country, a civilized country, a first world country. That just can't be
mhm.
sustainable. I
Well,
don't know if
it's
they're going
fun.
to elect him again. I don't know.
Yeah, it's funny because we were in Italy and Spain last year, and everywhere we would come in, um, one of them they get confused because they're like, "What are you guys?" And
We're
so
Italian people.
yeah, like people in other countries, because they have this impression that Americans most likely are going to be white.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So there was one time, in a lot of places and restaurants, they were like, "Oh, where are you guys from?" or whatever. I'm like, "Oh, we're Americans." I was like, "Oh, really? But you guys don't." I'm like, "It was because we're Latinos, of Mexican parents, whatever." So, but everywhere we would go, they would always bring Trump. That, how are we doing? I was like, he's like, oh, like in the times were like, that man is crazy. Like, what is he doing? Same thing in Spain. But it's funny because this Moroccan guy, there was a restaurant where we were staying, and we would go there and have breakfast, and we would always talk about politics. And he was a Moroccan guy that lived already in Spain for like, I don't know, 20 years. So he has his little business and stuff like that. But he was telling us like, I'm feel more comfortable talking about politics with you guys because most likely you guys are probably not, part like Trump supporters. And I was like, now if you guys were white, European looking, then I'll probably not bring politics because how about you guys are Trump supporters? But they always, brought up because they were like, so how is it you guys being minorities in that country under that administration? So there was always a topic everywhere. In Italy, in Spain.
I tell you though, there's a whole Facebook page called "I Regret Voting for Donald Trump." And you look at the polls. I saw one poll. I mean, he still has his supporters.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And you regret voting for him. I don't understand how you could vote for someone like that in the first place, because you don't care about women's rights, you don't care about rights about people of color, you don't care about Black people's rights, you don't care about Spanish speakers' rights. So you just don't. These things just don't matter to you, and that's just one issue. There's so many other things in the environment. You voted for him in the first place. His track record of being a slumlord in New York, the way he speaks about women, the way he's treated his wives. So you voted for this individual. Why do you regret? We all knew who he was before we voted for him.
Exactly.
But you still voted for him. Why are you regretting it? Look look at his life. His character is on display with his life. Was growing up in New York, you heard about Donald Trump, and we knew about his affairs and his different women. So I just couldn't understand how he even got to where he is. Like it's still being a New Yorker.
It was many of us, Roxana. Many of us. I was like,
I couldn't believe that they voted that.
I was like, when he first started coming along, I was like, what a joke. He's not gonna win. Yeah. Then I started seeing he started like pulling off. I was like, oh my gosh, can this really happen?
But that doesn't show, that reflects, it's indicative of who Americans are, or the majority of white Americans.
Well, that's what I tell everybody. I'm like, him getting into power just showed us where America still stands. It really does. That's period. It. Whether we like it or not, that it just shows where we stand still.
That's it.
And look what happened. Everything that's resurfacing.
White men and women that voted for him.
Yeah, especially the Midwest.
And you see, like you said, people of color are supporters of him. You have a lot of Black Trump supporters, and you have a lot of Spanish supporters. So,
it's just,
friend of my enemy. I don't know. Those people are that you can harm me. My life is on the line with someone like you. I'm a woman. I'm a Black woman. Oh my goodness. You know what I mean? Yeah, no. You're out to harm me. You're a danger to me if you support Donald Trump.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. It just blows my mind.
It blows my mind as well.
But that's where we are now.
That's where we are now. I enjoyed talking to you. I'd like to talk to you again. We're going to be remaining in contact. And
definitely.
It's a real pleasure. Do you have any social media handles in case anyone wants to get in touch with you? You can let me know if you want me to.
Well, not really. I mean, I don't do nothing major, but the only thing I probably do the most is maybe my Instagram.
Okay, well, let me know if you want to connect with Manny. Maybe I'll place his Instagram, because he had a lot of good things to say today. And please continue to support my channel. Let people know about my channel.
Yeah, definitely.
Let them know that I'm here and loving my life. Me and my daughter are loving our lives here in Mexico, and it's one of the best decisions I've ever made was to move to the país. Yeah.
I mean, it's a learning experience.
Huh?
It's a learning experience, definitely, moving to another country.
It's an ongoing learning experience, and I have not one regret, and I'm very happy to be here. Like I said, Mexico has been a refuge to me and my daughter. We safe, happy. You asked me about my life, happy, safe.
Well, now that you touch that thing, that's the other thing with Mexican life. It's the fact that right here in the States, it's just you live by the clock.
Uh-huh.
Work, home.
That's it.
And I feel like in other countries, for like in Latin America or other countries, you work to live.
That's it.
And over here, we live to work.
That's it. That's the American
Mhm.
life.
Yeah, that's the
Mhm.
American life, and it's not the best. I mean, I've had some relatives who came over here and they didn't like the life, and they came back. They went back to Mexico. Like, nope, you guys, all you guys do over there is just work, 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 and
That's it.
don't enjoy life.
That's it. And I'll say something though, because the American life is such, cost of living is such that if you're not fortunate to have financial security with your one position, then you have to
Exactly.
hustle,
Mhm.
I've had two jobs. I don't know, since maybe for 10, 15 years, I kept two jobs.
Yeah.
It was just two jobs. That was just the way life was, to include two jobs in my motherhood, me being a mom, and my daughter's almost
Mhm.
12. So I had two jobs, during her whole life in the States and prior to her. So that's one thing, because I was like, well, money has to come in from different places. And then there's entrepreneurial things, I've written, sold
Yeah.
things, just always hustling, always
Yeah.
grinding,
Yeah.
entrepreneur. So that's the one thing. And my mom, my dad, that's the one thing. But I'll tell you, with life here, what I've seen is Mexicans have a very strong work ethic. Mexicans
Mhm.
work very long hours. The people that I know, they work very long hours, very long, some of the longest work hours in the world. And
Mhm.
I try to tell people, I said, the way the economy is set up because of the peso situation, people have to work really long hours just to make ends meet, in addition to being an entrepreneur. That is what I've seen here in Veracruz. It's a very rich country. Veracruz is a rich state. We have oil here.
Oh
It's a
yeah.
rich state, but because of different situations, things are just not as well off as they can be. I mean, it hurts me. Why can't well, we could talk about this in the next time, but Veracruz has oil. Why why is Veracruz's situation not like somewhere in the Middle East?
Yeah.
Mexico has oil. Why,
Exactly.
same thing with
Well,
like Nigeria. Nigeria has oil.
well,
Why is the Middle East so special, so developed, and these countries in Mexico and Venezuela and all these other places that are brown and black countries,
mhm.
in Africa and in Latin America, why aren't we at the level of countries in the Middle East? This is something that I want to dig into, and we could talk about that next
Oh,
time.
and it's very true because I mean Mexico has the resources.
Absolutely.
Tourism, oil,
Absolutely.
land, agriculture. I mean, everything. But it hasn't, I don't know. I feel like we sell all our good, to what I've seen, because I haven't dig into this topic much, but we let other countries come and explode our lands
Yeah.
and they take all their money back. Nothing
We
stays in
can
Mexico.
definitely dig into that.
Yeah.
Just from what I've learned by living here and friends
Mhm.
of mine who work in the different industries, so to include oil industries, a friend of mine is working on the plataforma in the, ¿cómo se llama? Campeche, in the water,
Campeche.
the Gulf. And obviously everyone he works with is an international,
Yeah.
outfit. The company subleases from Pemex, and it's a Chinese-owned company.
Well, now that you're talking about that, one of my uh, one of my cousins that lives in Monterrey, she works for she works in the what's mercadotecnia marketing
Mhm.
department for housing development. And one time I was asking her, I'm like, so who owns this company you work for? And he's like, if we go up the ladder,
Chinese.
the main owner, a Middle Eastern.
Ah, there you have it. Look at
You
Carlos
know,
Slim. Look at
yeah,
Carlos Slim, right? The richest, I think he's the richest
yeah,
man in Mexico,
yeah,
one of the richest
richest
man in the
man
world.
in the world
Isn't he of Lebanese descent?
of Lebanese descent, I think,
But
yeah,
Mexican, but
of
Mexican.
Mexican.
And what he owns, Telmex, which is like
Yeah, he
the
owns all
largest
the. Mm-hmm,
internet provider, and that's just maybe one of his companies.
mm-hmm,
Yeah, Lebanese people travel too. A lot of Lebanese people are in West Africa. Yeah,
yeah,
Lebanese people
mm-hmm.
move because of
But
this.
yeah, but he was like, yeah, the owner is from the Middle East.
Generational Lebanese, generational.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so he was like, but I heard that company. I don't think he lives like in Saudi Arabia. This
Oh, okay.
owner, yeah. So she was like, yeah, the main boss is from Saudi Arabia.
There you have it.
And I was like, wow. So all this
Investment,
development.
yeah. Mexico is like very rich in resources.
Mm,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, it
Great
really is.
place to invest if you have the funds.
Yeah,
If you
it
have the
really is.
funds. Okay.
But,
Well, I thank you for your time.
well,
Thank you,
thank you for
Manny.
having me. Thank you
Thank you
for
for
having me,
coming.
and
Thank
we'll
you for
probably
coming
do
on
this
my
again.
channel. I'm happy you enjoyed the talk.
Yeah.
We will remain in contact.
Yeah, well, definitely. Just let me know.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Roxana. Have a
Take
good day.
care. Have a good day.
All
This
right,
is
bye.
Roxana Bangura of the Roxana Bangura channel and the Bangura Chronicles here on Patreon and Facebook, where I share with you my life here in Mexico and beyond. Okay, ciao.
Bye.
Bye.